Welcome back to the Butterfly Season podcast, guys. I am so excited. I have Sam Altieri on the show today. She is literally the brightest light you will ever hear if you're listening to this or see if you're watching on YouTube, but she is literally like the epitome of a multifaceted entrepreneur. She is, you guys are going to want to get like deep dive into all of her life. Like she's full-time van life. She's literally built $1 million brand, diagnosed with ADHD, which I feel like for some people feels like, very uncommon or something that they would want to attain. Activates her whole community around pleasure, power, prosperity, all of it. I am obsessed with her. We met at a conference and I'm so lucky to have her on the podcast today. Welcome, Sam. Sam, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. Can I just say that highlight of my day today?
Oh, I'm so stoked too. Honestly, I think after our conversation when you came onto my show, I was like, I feel like we just could have kept talking and it landed so deeply for me and I'm sure my people as well. So yeah.
Yeah, we got into the thick of it, which is why I'm super excited today for us to kind of get into that same magical, valuable groove on my podcast.
I love it.
We were talking briefly, guys, for those of you listening, before we started recording, and what we felt strongly about is pivoting. And a lot of people that DM me that they listen to the podcast, that they found value in it, they're in a season of transition. And which is oftentimes like some sort of pivot. You might not be doing a full 360 or 180 or whatever, but it could be like a little, recalibration of some sort, cocoon season, if you will. So Sam, you had mentioned perpetual state of pivot. What does that mean? It feels a little anxiety ridden, I will say. But what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think okay, so where this even has come from is honestly that I went to undergrad and grad school for architecture thinking that that's what the rest of my life was going to be.
Yeah.
And fast forward to here and now, and that's absolutely not what I'm doing at all. And there's been so many plot twists. The universe is like, ha ha ha, yeah, that's what you thought you were gonna be doing, but actually And so, I mean, since I left my 9 to 5 back in 2016, I think I've tried on so many different identities and businesses and directions, and it truly has felt like I've been in a perpetual state of pivot until very, very recently, where I feel like I have landed in a new way, if that makes sense. And a deepening of whoa, every single pivot that I've been in has led me to this place. And I'm sure that there's going to be more, but where I am right now feels so true and exciting and really fucking expansive. Butterfly, see, butterfly wings,
right.
Holy shit, I can go anywhere here.
Right. So talk to me about, I want to get into feeling like we're about to be into butterfly season, but talk to me about the pivots. Was there an unsuspecting connection between pivot A and pivot B that you're like, I had no idea that these two things would end up complementing each other really well in this journey, but here we are.
Totally. Well, I think at the core of it all, what has if I feel like the neat and organized version of me would have just stuck it out. You know what I mean? Would have just been nope, this is the thing. I invested all this money, all this energy, all this time into this thing. I should stay here and it makes sense. But I don't think I've ever really been a logical person. Sometimes to a fault, but I think I've always kind of been somebody who has a really low tolerance for feeling like you're settling or feeling like this isn't it, I don't have that window of okay, I guess it's fine. I'm always like, no, it's not fine. Like, I need to get the fuck out of here. You know?
Which I feel like is not, I wouldn't call it illogical. I feel like that feels like intuition led.
Yeah. And that's exactly like what I was going to say is like every time that I've changed or shifted or whatever, it has been this inner knowing, this inner pull of like, you have to fucking do it. Like, what's going to
Mm-hmm.
happen if you don't? You are going to stay here for the rest of your life and you're going to be on your deathbed when you're 90 being like, damn girl, what the F? And I always just would go there to like my old, wise, gray haired, saggy tit self to be like, no, Sam, like you have to just go and trust and it's gonna be okay.
Yeah. Is there something that you feel like you needed during times of pivot that you wish you would have had?
Oh, I mean, I think this conversation, like honestly, like I feel like I didn't have the permission to do it and I felt so bad every single time. Like every single time I felt like this is so dumb. Like I'm turning off, like I'm letting go of an opportunity of a lifetime, or I just built this amazing thing and now I'm leaving it. Like what? Like I always went inward with it and made myself
Yeah.
wrong. And I think having somebody to be like, no, like you are like it's okay. Like if you built it once, you can build it again and better. And every single time, that's gonna just keep happening.
Yeah. Here's what I think. I think that sometimes it can be hard with these conversations because you might not feel like you have the support to people that would also tell you, yeah, burn the ship, do what you love, right? Because like because some people
Yeah.
are healthy risk takers. I definitely am a person that's like, okay, like yeah, like risk is cool. Like how can we do it in a healthy way that like, if shit hits the fan, you're not down and out and homeless.
Right.
What has been, you said like opportunity of a lifetime or building something. Can you
Yeah.
share with us like a real world scenario where you did something that seemed out of the norm, but it was intuition led and you're glad that you did it?
Yeah, totally. I think the big one, and I feel like for a lot of people listening, if they're in a 9 to 5 and they want to build a business or they're building a business while they're in their 9 to 5, like when I was in my 9 to 5, like basically I got handed my job through one of my professors in grad school. Like she was like, I would absolutely love for you to come work for our firm. I had done an internship like two or maybe like the summer before. Um, and so she knew me quite intimately and was like, hey, we would love to offer you like a full-time position. And I remember, like, have you ever done something where your gut is clearly screaming no, but like you say yes? You're like, uh-huh, yeah.
Yes.
Like
Too many
that's
times.
what happened when she offered me the job. Like I was so grateful, obviously, to not have to like apply anywhere or like do my resume. And I'm like so lazy with that stuff anyways, that it was like, oh yeah, of course, like let me take this opportunity. But I remember writing in my phone, like I used to always like journal, but in the note section of my phone. And I wrote
Mm-hmm.
to myself, I think I just made a really big mistake. And I have like
Mm.
goosebumps as I say it, because I I knew that it wasn't right, but I didn't know what else to do because I was like, okay, but I'm just going to get another job in like yeah, so that job, I worked there for 3.5 years and I was given so much responsibility. Like I became like a project manager and they trusted me so much. I mean, I worked like 60 to 80-hour weeks, but
Wow.
they they really did trust me. And
Yeah.
so I was running like full fledged projects at the age of like 23, 24, 25. And to the point where at like right about the time where I was going to quit or like I was on that edge of like, I can't be here anymore. Um, they talked to me about wanting to give me the firm. And I was like, what? Like, so they're a married couple and they had poured all their money, all their energy, all their time into this firm. It was at like literally the prime location in Boston, right on the corner of like the Boston Commons. And it was a boutique architecture firm. Like they did really great work. And they were like, we want you to like be like either be a partner or, basically take the firm over for us when we get too old to like do this. And I was just like, oh,
Some
Like,
people would be like, "Oh my god, am I dreaming? This is so cool." And you're like, "Get me out of here."
oh my God. It was one of those moments where I actually did feel quite crazy because I was like, this, for somebody, this is the opportunity to be of like a lifetime.
Right. Right.
But for me, it felt like, holy shit, I need to run away, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was like that was the final straw of like, whoa, they see way too much potential in me and I have to leave before I like lead them on, you know?
Right, that's what it feels like. Honestly, like when you're telling this story, it feels like I mean, we've all, I'm sure, been in those situations where you stayed in maybe a relationship a little bit too long and like you haven't quite expressed how you've been feeling and they're like, "I want to marry you." And you're like, "Ugh, I gotta go."
I know, like, sorry, I gotta go. Yeah. And I think, like, along with that, like, it wasn't just like, I always had that feeling like there was something more out there for me,
Yeah.
and I always knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I, like, I don't know, there was always this, I guess, part of me that was like, I know that I'm not supposed to be doing this, and I didn't really know what that meant. And so yeah, I guess, like, I had to just trust that, but I also knew that, like, none of my friends had gone off and done their own thing. So,
Yeah.
I didn't really have, like, a support system. My boyfriend at the time was so supportive, and he told me, like, "You're gonna crush whatever you do," and I think without him, like, I wouldn't have made the leap. He made me feel so safe to do it, and, like, I wasn't stupid. I didn't leave my 9 to 5 without any money or any, like, backup plan.
Right.
Had,
Right.
like I had some, like, design and, like, freelance work that I was like, "Okay, great, like, I'm doing all these things, and at least I have money coming in, and it's not like
Yeah.
I'm just pulling the pulling the rug out from underneath me," but
Right.
I do remember being just so scared, but knowing in every single bone of my body that it was the right thing, and I do feel like that's been a common theme for me, whether it was, like, I moved to California for 3 months alone when I was a junior in college, same thing. When it's like all these moments of these edges of, like, "What the fuck am I doing?" But, like, I have to trust it.
Yeah. How do you feel like, because some people don't trust their intuition, and I feel like I, in certain circumstances, I where I feel like maybe I've had a lot more reps in, I will trust it. I feel like my intuition, like with like friends and who they're dating, I'm usually spot on. I can just tell yes or no
Yeah.
typically, right? And that's just because, like, think about it, like in high school you're probably using it, or even as a child with, like, your parents' relationships or whatever, you're using this like muscle often enough.
Yeah.
Can you remember the first time you exercised that muscle? Because, like, I feel like right now when I'm talking to you, you feel like seasoned in trusting your intuition. And I think for a lot of people, they struggle with that. So,
Mm.
like, what are the signals for you? Is it bodily? Is it.
Yeah, so here's what I'll say, like, and I'll explain, like, why I'm sharing this part because I feel like it is related to the intuition piece. As a young kid, I did not feel like I fit in. Like, I don't
Mm,
know if you can relate to that feeling, but it was like this, like, I'm an outsider here, but, like, I don't know why, it just something feels different, and I've always been a very, very sensitive, like, kid. I was a super sensitive, emotional kid, but I didn't know how to express that, and I remember, like, being in my room as a kid, as a middle schooler, even as a high schooler with, like, Linkin Park, fucking just being so, like, just in the world, like, screaming, like, In the End, like, with my Sony
my
Walkman,
gosh, it
what
doesn't
I mean? Like,
even
yeah, yeah, it's
matter.
like, "Fuck this place," like, right, but, like, you would never know because that wasn't what I presented on the outside, but I was in, like, so
Really?
much yeah, I was in so much, like, internal pain that I didn't know how to tell anyone because, like, I never was modeled vulnerability and, like, how
Wow.
to, like, you know, process your emotions, and so, for me, it was like, emotions are weak and vulnerability is weak, and we don't show those things, and we always have to have it together and be the fucking best, I know we talked about that in our episode of, like, you
Mhm.
have to be the high achiever because that's what your worth is based on, right? And so, like,
Right.
that was always what it was for me, but, like, I never felt like I fit in, and I always felt like I cared about things that other people didn't care about.
Yeah.
And, like, I was really fascinated with, like, why things were the way that they were, and I was always intrigued with things that people are just, like, just would overlook. And when I was, let's see, this was like a year and a half ago, I got diagnosed with ADHD. And I feel like that diagnosis actually helped me understand that part of me. But also, I think that, like, I mean, I don't know how much science is there behind this because obviously it's a recent diagnosis and I'm still like learning. But what I do know to be true is that a lot of people that are ADHD or autistic, or maybe they're like really high achievers, are also highly sensitive or highly
Yeah.
empathic or highly intuitive. And
Yeah.
I think my whole life, I didn't know, like, I didn't realize that all the feelings I was feeling wasn't even probably mine. You know, it was probably like a lot of other people's that I was just
Yeah.
absorbing. But I was just like fucking raging because I was feeling everyone's shit and I didn't know how to process it. So I think, like, I've always had it. I just only recently, and honestly in business, is where I've really started to realize, like, whoa, like how strong this is. And this is like what is going to like 10x your business or your purpose or your direction if you trust yourself, which is it is so hard to do when there's so much noise and your friends are doing X and you're like, but I want to do this, but maybe I should do this.
Right.
It's like tuning out that noise. So, you know, going back to your question of like, well, how do you do it or what does it feel like? For me, it is this, it feels like, like, I'm like, how do I put words to it? It feels like, well, I'll give the contrary because that will help anchor in like what it feels like. You know, when you're scared and your whole body kind of like closes in on itself, or you kind of feel that
Mm-hmm.
like, ugh, right? Like you contract. For me, that's what like this is a no feels like. Like it's just like ugh.
Mm.
And that's how it felt in my 9 to 5. Like I just felt like contracted. I felt like
Wow.
ugh, right? And then now doing what I'm doing, I feel like my chest is like open. I feel like I can fly. That'd be so cool if I could. But like it feels like there's this expansiveness or like this pulling energy that like might not make sense, but it definitely is, yeah, just like pulling me almost like a magnet.
Towards something?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Wow.
Towards anything, whether it's you, right? Like I remember being drawn to you. It was the same thing of like I would love to have you on my podcast. I was like, I don't know why. I loved her pants. I loved her outfit, but that wasn't it. You know, it's like there was something
Right.
else. I was like,
Yeah.
there's something, so I gotta trust it and reach out and ask.
Right. I love that. It's so funny that you brought up about like highly sensitive people or high achievers, high performers, or oftentimes highly sensitive. I went down this whole rabbit hole because I feel like I can get overstimulated. I'm also like highly emotional. I'm also a Pisces, which we're like emotional people.
Uh-huh.
Very. But like a lot can make me cry.
Mm,
Movies, I get so like watching a movie, I get so it is like no, I don't watch movies how normal people watch movies, and so I'm often like resistant towards it because I am in it. Like I am the character. I am in there.
mm,
That's how I watch it. And so when
yeah,
something scary happens or something sad happens, I feel like I feel that pain or that
mm,
sadness or that fear. So it
yeah,
feels so heightened to me. I cry in almost every movie because every movie has some sort of like sad part and I'm sobbing about it because I feel like it's me. I'm in
yeah,
here. And so I started to look it up because my husband was just like, you literally cry in every movie. And I'm like, I know. And there are people who are like super highly sensitive. And one of the things that it said was you might also be super highly sensitive to sound. And I am like, a lot feels loud to me. And I'm just like, can
mm,
you turn that down? Like, it's just too much. Like, it just is whatever. And so apparently all it is I'm just like highly sensitive and could feel like energy and things a lot more than other people can. Some people, I guess it would be called on a spectrum, but some people have it more than others. And so it's interesting to hear you say that and how yours is like coupled with intuition. I don't know that I've ever thought about mine in that way, that like some of these things that make me feel sensitive could also be like tied into intuition.
Yeah.
That feels like level 10. I feel like I'm level 5.
Yeah, I mean, I think like all I know is that like what you're saying like about like crying during movies and stuff, it's like you're just like you are very sensitive, and it's like you have a high level of empathy, and often people that do have a high level of empathy, myself included, are pretty intuitive actually, or have some sort of psychic gift, or know things that are going to happen before they happen, right? And
Yeah.
like you and I think that's actually been part of my own pivot journey, is like I knew that I was going to hate it, so I had to leave before I did, you know? Or
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I knew that I was going to hit a stalemate, or I knew, you know, like you just have this inner knowing that you can't ignore because it just whispers to you every single day, and it just gets louder and louder and louder.
Yeah. It really does. And I feel like that's definitely like cocoon season vibes, right? Like you know that you're not quite where you want to be in your
Mhm.
current situation. And you know there's probably time between you and the next situation or your butterfly season. Where are you in your journey? Is it cocoon season? Is it butterfly season? I feel like there can be both. So, where are you
Yeah.
in your journey?
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like I was in a cocoon for like all of 2022. Like
Really?
it was so, yeah, it was, I think last year was the hardest year of my whole life. Like
Wow.
I I can't say there's one thing, right? But I will say that I feel like a lot of my friends also said that 2022 was just really challenging, and I I feel like I had to feel like I was talking to Kurt, my fiance, like yesterday about it, and I was like, dude, I cried like maybe not every day of 2022, but like a lot of days of 2022. And he was like, you really did. Like, and I remember just like crawling into his arms and just being like, my inner child is just so fucking sad and in so much pain. And I don't think I let her like
Mm.
really feel all the feelings. Like, I've done so much healing work, but it's like you can do the work and then you feel the things. And it's like the healing happens after the feeling. And I, like, last year, I think was the most humiliated and ashamed I've ever felt in like my business or just in like achieving, because I couldn't do both. Like I couldn't do all the healing that was happening and have the bandwidth to run my business. Like it was
Why?
just
Was
too
it because you were like unlearning and learning, and maybe were there like toxic traits in terms of like business that you're like, if I'm unlearning this, I cannot go back?
Yes, yes, like, it was so much like codependency was so viral for me in every single relationship, with money, with, Kurt, with friends, with my clients, but I'm like, "Oh my god," it was a disease, and then
I
there was,
literally
like
feel like that, like I felt the same. Can I just give you
yeah,
some assurance on the codependency
yeah,
front? The moment I figured out, I felt like this is a pandemic in my life. Like if my life was something, if my life was plagued by anything, it was codependency. And
oh,
I'm like, it's everywhere and it's contagious and it's bleeding all over everything.
yeah.
What? Okay, so how did you figure that out? What was the catalyst? What was your like what was the thing? I imagine whatever you found out put you into cocoon season. I would, because you're like, I can't unhear this and I got to change it.
Yeah. Um, it honestly, it showed up first for me in my relationship when I realized,
Your current,
like,
you with your fiance.
yeah, yeah. So we've been together for a little bit over 4 years now, and like he is amazing. Well, I'll just put that. Like he is the best man I could have ever found for me. Like, and every like day that goes on, I'm like, holy shit, like you are 100% the person for me. Like it just feels amazing. But
Yeah.
I had so much trauma around men and feeling safe with men, and
Yeah.
also feeling like I could commit. Like I was so afraid of intimacy and so afraid of commitment and so afraid of like when I was with him, I couldn't, like it was, I almost became this like person that I'm not, which is like super clingy and needy and like I want you to hang out with me all the time. And that's not who I am. Like I'm very independent and like love doing my own thing.
Yeah.
But like I morphed into this person that was like, let's hang out every single day. And like I need to like basically be by your side all the time. And I was like, what is happening? And I would ask him to do something with me and he would be like, oh, like, you know, I'm not really in the mood. And I would make it mean that I wasn't lovable, I wasn't worthy, he didn't love me.
Wow.
I genuinely didn't think he loved me 3 years into our relationship, when in
He's
actuality,
like, ma'am,
yeah, he's like,
I'm not going anywhere.
yeah, like he proposed to me like 18 months into us dating, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, I was like, why?
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
I had no idea that somebody could like love me for me. Do you know what I mean? Like that sounds so
Yeah.
like it's
No,
adorable
it's
and
true.
sweet, but
Yeah.
so yeah, I think when you are in a relationship with somebody who like really does see you and loves all the parts, and I've literally never experienced that. Like growing up, my dad was just so highly critical, and I think like I always expected Kurt to be judging me or criticizing me, or when I made
Yeah.
a mistake for him to freak. Like my body would literally prepare for him to like yell at me or something, but he never,
Wow.
he never did, obviously. And
Yeah.
I remember saying at some points like, you're not mad that I like dropped the glass and broke it or whatever? And he's like, no, what? Like it, I was like, wait, you're not gonna yell at me? Like it was actually wild. And that's when I realized like he was such a mirror for me in my healing journey, and even just in my business too, of like how hurt I was as a kid, child, teenager, all of that, and how much I like really didn't heal until Kurt just triggered the shit out of me, because he just loved me and I was so mad at him for just loving me. Like I was like, why aren't you mad at me? Like I was like wanting
Because
to
you were
like
like conditioned. Yeah.
yeah,
Yes. Because what it sounds like love meant to you was like friction and,
chaos. Like
anger, chaos. Yeah. And so if you're not getting that, you're like, do you not love me? I had a similar, it was in before I realized anything about codependency, but Cam, my husband, and I were first dating. And I remember we had gotten into an argument. I think it was about his driving. Like we were just getting comfortable enough for me to be like, your driving fucking sucks. Cause like before it's like cute and like you just keep it mute. Like,
yeah.
you're just happy to be there.
Yeah.
We had gotten in an argument in the car and I don't even remember really what it was about, but I was just like so upset. And he got out of the car, came around to my door and was like, hey, I'm sorry. I don't want to fight. Like I shouldn't have said whatever, and just like apologize. And I remember looking at him like, you're fucking kidding me. I cannot believe. Like I was just more angry. He was like, wait, why are you upset? And I'm just like, I couldn't even find the words. It was so logical, his approach, and that's normal. But I was just used to chaos and conflict in previous relationships that like, I just thought like you have to break up to make up. Like that was required. And I remember telling my friends, yeah, like he apologized. We got in this fight and it was just like, I don't know. I just don't think there's passion there. And my best friend was like, girl, this is normal. Like this is how it should be. This is like fighting and all of that stuff is not passion. It's not love. Like you condition your mind to think that in the past, but that's not currently. And it's just so crazy to think like how many other areas have we conditioned our mind to think certain things that are actually not the case.
Dude, for real. I mean, I remember there was this one situation. This is honestly, I think, probably one of my like wildest low points in our relationship where I was like, what the fuck is going on? Because this has nothing to do with him. It's all me. Like, we were driving, right? We're full time in our van traveling around. And so we're often like in new places and like want to try food and drinks and whatever from like cool spots. And he found this spot that was like, it was like this like burger bar on like the side of the road. And it was like, do our challenge, 2 double cheeseburgers, a fry, and a drink. If you can eat it in under 15 minutes, we'll give you, I forget what the prize was. And like, like I, so part of obviously codependency is like control, right? Like we want to
Yeah.
control the other person and like
Right.
make them be just like us. And so I am like very health conscious and like very aware of everything I put in my body and like all that shit. And so,
Oh no, you were triggered.
oh my God, the audacity. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I was like, if you wanted to go do this on your own, go for it. But you're gonna do that in front of me? He was literally looking at me and I was just giving it to him straight, like, what? This is so gross. Like, I can't believe you would eat 2 double cheeseburgers. Like, what? So fucking judgmental. He's like, Sam, I have never done this. And it's like, this is not a normal occurrence.
It's not like every weekend I'm doing the 2 cheeseburger challenge. Like,
oh my God. I took it so personally. I was like, you don't even care about your health. And because you don't care about your health, you don't care about us. And like, I really don't even think you're putting an effort into this relationship.
And for those reasons, we need to break up. He's probably like, what the hell just happened?
And I literally remember like storming back into the van and like eating my fucking salad with chicken or some shit. I don't even know. And I probably wanted a burger. That's the hilarious part.
Right. You're projecting.
Just in my stubbornness. And he comes back and tells me he did it. And he's like, I didn't even tell them I did it in under 15 minutes. Are you happy? And I was like, I'm a monster. Like, that's literally what I vowed to myself of like, I was like, oh my God. Like, this affected me so much to the point, I am not even kidding, dude. I was crying I was like, why am I so upset? Why is this triggering me to the point of tears that he's eating a double cheeseburger? 2.
Yeah.
Like, what? And so I did like a lot of journaling on that because I was like, this is not okay. Like, what the hell? And then I found out what codependency was. I realized like, oh my God, I had been trying to control him for probably the last year and a half, maybe like, year and a half in a relationship. And, you know, after like the honeymoon phase and like the experience of like getting to know someone and then you really get to know them and you move in with them and you learn all their habits and you're like, nope. Like, I just had a whole checklist of things. I was like, you need to change that. You need to change that.
Wow.
Meanwhile, like, he never once tried to ever change me. He like fully accepted me as I was. And it used to just make me I think it was so uncomfortable for someone to like just love me like that. And so then like I felt like I was getting more and more mad and more controlling because he kept putting up his walls, obviously, because the person that's like trying to like supposed to love him is just criticizing him. And I was like, oh my God, I'm being my dad to him. Like, I'm literally criticizing and watching his every move. And no wonder why somebody would put up their walls. Like, no wonder why our relationship felt like shit. Like, honestly, ever since then and me learning about codependency, I've realized like, holy shit, that is a disease. It really is. It's like worse than COVID. And like it completely, like, it makes people like end relationships because they have such a false sense of what love is, and love is not control. Like, and I feel like I'm in the happiest, like healthiest place I've ever been in my relationship. And I'm like seeing where codependency is showing up in like, you know, micro ways in business or money or whatever.
Right.
But yeah,
what did you have to let go of? That sounds like it was your break free moment, right? Like this double cheeseburger situation was the thing that like the catalyst for change.
Yeah.
what did you have to let go of to like be in a place where you feel like you're the happiest you've been, the most authentic you've been? Like,
Yeah. I feel like the word that comes to mind is control. Like, I think what I've realized is, I study trauma a lot and I work with my clients on it. And because it is like, if we don't heal all that stuff, it always just comes up in anything, relationships, business, etc. And what I realized is like I had to heal my relationship with my dad and like the masculine, like actually surrendering into like your feminine energy and trusting. Like that to me has been everything. Like trusting that like Kurt can lead us, like trusting that Kurt's doing the best thing that he needs to do for him, or that he's taking care of us, or, like in the context of like my personal life, even just trusting in the grand plan and not needing to micromanage or control everything, and just like literally letting go of that control.
so help me understand, what did you have to let go of to fully lean into or get out of the cocoon season of codependency with your relationship? Like, what did you have to let go of? And I know you said surrender, and you had to let go of control. And I'm like, what I would love to know is how practically, what does that look like? Like, what would surrender look like in the cheeseburger situation?
So for me, like basically when that situation has happened again, right? Like fortunately, like we're not doing cheeseburger challenges like all the time, but like, you know, like situations that could trigger me, right? Or even if they do, what I've learned to realize is like creating space between the trigger and like what happens after it, Like so like Kurt and I are in a van. So we're also like really close to each other in proximity. And so I think that also like exacerbates and like magnifies anything because
Right.
we are always within like 10 feet of each other when we're in the van. And so what I've like I've got kind of come up with my own process, which is like, okay, when he does something or says something or whatever, I notice myself being like, like it's kind of this like visceral feeling of either like anger or like what the fuck, or whatever the trigger is. And then I will just breathe. That's number one, is like, okay, I'm gonna breathe, and then I'm gonna ask myself like not what is he doing wrong, what is that happening. I'm like asking
Mm.
myself like, what am I making this mean? Like that's what I ask myself all the time. And so, you know with the burger thing, he was just getting a burger, but I was making
Yes.
it mean that he didn't love me. Like, how wild it was that I could take that all the way back, right? And so I would say it's that piece of like, "Ooh, what am I making this mean?" And then can I give, like, love to myself in that moment? Like, meeting myself with grace and compassion and love. And honestly, I feel like it is so much like being with my inner child when she feels like, "What the fuck?" Or when,
Right.
you get triggered because you're in a relationship and that's gonna happen. But it's like knowing that he loves me and I love me, and that's what matters the most, and we're always going to come to a resolution. And it's like being able to take a step back and really just like go inward.
Yeah. What I love about that is the level of accountability that's required, right? Like oftentimes when we're upset or when we're frustrated, we kind of we position it like, you did this to me, you made me feel this way, you. But when you flip the script and say, what am I making this mean? You can kind of dissect what's actually happening, or the conversation underneath the table, I guess, if you will, and see, like, is this real or not? Like, I remember a time I was chatting with my mom
Yeah.
about her life insurance policy, and I was telling her, you should change it to your husband, because if anything happens, like, I don't want to have to be responsible of, figuring it out. Like, if you guys both pass and we can deal with that, but like, you don't want to
Yeah.
leave the other one high and dry. And her response to me was, "I've worked so hard. I was a single mom." And I'm just like, "Hold on. What are you making this mean?" Like, I'm not questioning any of that. When really come like when we dialed it in and figured out like why she had such a visceral response, she felt like I was, I guess, invalidating the hard work that she did to have a life insurance policy or to leave me with something. And like for her, that's like legacy or first generation or whatever, you know, like that was a big deal for her. And it's so interesting because in those situations when we're the person that's feeling offended or when we're the person that's upset, you can say like, what am I making this mean? Like, am I making it mean more than what it needs to mean? So I love that self-reflection moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like even to go full circle to like our conversation at the beginning about like being highly sensitive, I think I also am highly sensitive. Right. And so I think a lot of people that are like this can get really easily triggered and don't know how to manage it because they don't have like the tools or the emotional intelligence or any of that. And so it's so easy to blame or project. And like, I think it is, like you said, like just taking personal and radical responsibility for your own emotional landscape and knowing that like nobody is making you feel that way. It's that like their feelings are there to help you and guide you. And like the more I've felt all of the stuff in my relationship, the easier it's been to be in the relationship because I've stopped making so many things mean things that they don't mean. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. If there's any takeaway from the whole podcast, like that really hit me in between the eyes because it's so true. So I appreciate you rounding this podcast out in such a beautiful way. I so appreciate your time. It's always fun with you.
Thank you. It was so fun.
It is so fun. It's been so fun. The last podcast was super fun. This one was so fun. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me over on, I love to hang out on Instagram. That kind of feels like my like virtual home. So my handle is Sam Altieri. And I also have a podcast that I love to just share like moments like this, riffs, things I'm learning in life, business, relationship. I've been talking a lot about money lately because I've been noticing how I had such a codependent relationship with money too. So that's wild.
Yeah.
So that's the Sam Altieri show.
Yes,
I'm Sam Altieri everywhere. YouTube, I've been kind of playing with just documenting like van life and all of that. But those are like the main places. So definitely come say hi.
Amazing. And if you found anything of value on this episode, post it on Instagram stories, tag us. Like we want to have this conversation with you in real time. And it's just helpful for us to kind of know that like we're not going through this alone. I know so many people are already in my DMs about codependency. So if you want to hear more about it, especially around money, because I will probably be heading to your podcast for that as well. You know where to find Sam.
I love it.
Anyway, Sam, thank you so much. I appreciate you. You are just such a bright light, and I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. I'm so excited to meet your people and to share your episode with me and all of that. It's awesome how it all works. And we just always like find, you know, it's like you gravitate towards people that you just resonate with and vibe with. And now we're here and who knows what's going to happen in the future.
Yes. Vibing in our butterfly seasons.